everybody. So we are so excited to be here for Obscure Animation, and this is where we celebrate underappreciated, hidden gems, films that maybe obscure is stretching it a little bit, but we want them to give them a shout out. We don't think they're appreciated enough. And I'm Rachel, and Stanford is here.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah. So today we are talking about a film from Laika Studios from 2012. We're talking about ParaNorman. And I'm really thrilled to be talking about this film because I do think it is underappreciated. It may not be obscure, but I definitely think it's underappreciated.
Yeah, agreed. And I can't believe that it's the film came out in 2012. It seems like it was maybe 2015. It just
Yeah,
seems like
I
it's been
know.
that long. But yeah, so I'm really excited to talk about it too. So thanks for the invite,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Well, and 2012 was a very strong year for animation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just the Oscar nominees alone, you had ParaNorman, Frankenweenie, which I love both. I think they're both really strong stop motion, and then you had Brave and Wreck-It Ralph, Pirates, Band of Misfits. That's the one that was the
Pirates,
fifth
yeah.
one. Ernest
Well,
Celestine was the next year.
and talk about a banner year for stop motion animation. I mean,
Oh my
three
gosh.
really big stop motion animated films,
Yeah.
and how cool, I mean, that's really, really cool.
I agree. Yeah, it really was a great year for stop motion. Have an Aardman film, have a Disney film, stop motion, and then to have a Leica film.
A Leica, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I mean, I don't know if that's happened since. It would have had to have three.
Let's see.
Three big stop motion features all come out.
Yeah.
Within the same year.
I don't think so. Yeah. I'm trying to think here. Let's see. You had in 2015, you had two nominees, stop motion, with Anna Melissa and Shaun the Sheep movie.
Yeah.
And then you had two in 2016 with My Life as a Zucchini and Kubo and the Two Strings. So that's interesting. And I do think the Academy has been, one of their strengths has been almost every year they nominate a stop motion film. And
I appreciate.
Yeah. They've been really great in celebrating, small films, small animated films, and stop motion in particular. It seems they really have done a good job with that.
There's something about the artistry in a stop motion animated film, and particularly ParaNorman, that we're going to talk about, that I just am I always come away just so amazed by the work of them. It's so amazing, and I think with ParaNorman too, it's almost a bit of a hybrid film is maybe not the right term to use, Rachel. Maybe we find a better word. Because there's some computer generated imagery that they have had to put into this film. Still, though, it just feels just so dimensional, and you're looking, and that everything is done with, with at least they make it look that way, and just really so well made, and just technically so excellent.
Really immersive, and really there's so much heart in this movie, and I think that's what makes it so special. So let's talk a little bit about Laika as a company. So it was really interesting. In my research, I learned that the studio actually started as Will Vinton Studios, and that's an interesting thing because he just passed away this last week.
I know, Will Vinton just passed away last week, and that is interesting and bittersweet, because he was such a pioneer. I remember seeing those California Raisin commercials as a kid, that he did, and such a distinctive style, and anyway, it just was such a contributor to the art form. Yeah, so that's cool that we're talking about that.
Yeah.
One of something that kind of has his stamp on it in an indirect way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I guess he started looking for outside investors in the late 90s, 1998, and that's when Phil Knight got on board. And this is like the most, I guess, glorious case of nepotism ever, because
Can you imagine?
he basically invested in this studio because he wanted his son to have a career in stop motion animation, Travis Knight. And Phil Knight is one of the owners of Nike.
Phil Knight is one of the Nikes, and like a founder of Nike shoes and apparel and everything. Holy smokes! I mean, can you imagine? Like, the president of Nike shows up, like, wants to buy your company. Like, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, we should all be very grateful, because none of the Laika movies have done very well at the box office. But I think because it's there's this family side to it, they have persisted where they probably wouldn't have if they were just like some random company.
I know. Exactly. And Travis Knight, who's I believe has a producer credit on this film. He didn't direct it, but he directed Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yes.
And but he's also directing, that Travis Knight. I don't mean to take us down another direction, but Travis Knight is directing that Bumblebee movie,
which I actually have a little bit of hope for, not only because it has a new director with now more Michael Bay, but also like I do like Haley Steinfeld, and I don't know, I feel like it could be it looks like the trailers make it feel a little bit nostalgic, which I think is the way to go with this franchise, because like that's where the memories are of people playing with the toys and the shows from the 80s and things like that. So a little bit of a feeling of nostalgia with a quality actress as opposed to Megan Fox, and these kind of things. And so I'm actually a little bit hopeful. But
I'm with you. I have my fingers crossed. I hope it's gonna be good. Well, and I just think Travis Knight and his the team at Laika, they're so good. I think that gives it some hope. I'm hoping that Travis Knight. This doesn't mean that Travis Knight is leading Laika. Do you know what that? Did he just kind of take a break and do this live action / CGI film? Or I don't know, because I don't know.
I'm not sure. I hope that he's not. He's still evidently the CEO of president and CEO of Laika.
Yeah.
So, he hopefully, if he's not going to be animated anymore, hopefully he's at least, because it looks like in their new film Missing Link, he's going to be producer and animator, it says.
Okay. Because Missing Link comes out in 2019. Yeah.
Yes,
Missing
2019.
Link comes out in 2019,
currently,
correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm glad to hear the Laika
so
still
anyway,
making movies. Yeah. And they've got some deep pockets, right?
Yay for Nike.
Yeah, yay for Nike.
So do you have a favorite Laika film of the ones they put out?
I think my favorite is Kubo and the Two Strings, but definitely number 2 is ParaNorman. I think ParaNorman is so well done. I think I respect Coraline more than I enjoy it, but it's so well made, and they did such a good job. Just as good job with it, but just as a film that I enjoy, Yeah. How about you?
I think this is I think this is my favorite, but I do love Coraline. I think that in my opinion, what's really great about Coraline is that her parents are kind of awful. And it's easy to do her real parents, not the fake parents, her real parents. And it's easy to do the right thing and have a protagonist who fights for what's obviously wholesome and wonderful and good. It's harder when you have a protagonist who has to fight for things that are really flawed. And I think that at first she's very, very tempted by these seemingly perfect versions of her parents. But then she has to kind of fight for these flawed versions of her parents by the end. And I kind of think that that's beautiful. And I really like that. So that's the part, but I just love Laika's movies, even the Box Trolls, and a lot of people hated it, but I actually thought there was a really interesting core to that movie about class and clothing and how we differentiate ourselves by even just the hats that the different people were wearing, and how one group could eat cheese and another group couldn't eat cheese. And how like the one character, he all that he wanted, he wasn't really a bad guy. He just wanted recognition. Like he just wanted to be able to eat cheese even though it made him like super allergic and super sick. And so I think there was an interesting thing there that I really enjoyed. And I just feel like their movies always have this sort of core heart to them, which I really, in addition to the incredible animation, incredible imagery, that there's just this I end up feeling good and oddly inspired.
No, I agree with you, and I feel I appreciate what they do as a studio, and that I think that they take on these projects that have some challenging storylines and they have courage in telling them, I think. I'm with you. I'm not a huge fan of the Box Trolls. I didn't really like the narrative, but again, just absolutely wowed by their technical and artistic wizardry that they incorporate with their filmmaking.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into ParaNorman then. So ParaNorman, it starts off with you almost think, oh, is my screen wrong? Because it's starting off with this little sort of scene from classic zombie movie, like a George Romero kind of a thing. Or something.
They bring in the aspect ratio, so it's just like you're looking at a really small color TV, and it's or even if like a 16 millimeter film or something. I mean, it's not perfect, right? There's crackles in it or different things it's such a fun way to start.
Now, would you agree with me? I feel like it depends on the kid, but I really feel like this movie was more made for teenagers, for middle school, high schoolers.
Yeah, I think teenagers would relate to it more than the younger set, and the younger set could be a little scary for them, although it's kind of in a way kind of a safe scary, so it would still be maybe still ultimately kind of fun, I guess, in the twisted way to say. But
it depends on the kid.
Depends on the kid, absolutely. But it's totally junior high, and what I think the challenges and kind of the horrors of that time period and for everybody. And I would agree. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that it's just the humor is also, I think it's a little bit more mature than something like Frankenweenie, for example. Is definitely more for kids.
Yes.
We start out with Norman talking to his dead grandma. And
we don't find out she's dead till a little later on in the segment, but which I love.
And he tries to explain to his father about grandma, and he doesn't believe her, and he doesn't believe him. And they have, there's obviously some conflict there between Norman and his parents. And you learn like later on that in the world of the story, basically ghosts stay around until they're not needed anymore, till their job is done. And so it's interesting to see that for Norman, even at the end, the grandma is still there. She still needs to take care of Norman, which is interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too that the grandma character doesn't progress like some of these others that we'll be talking about. And I meant to say sequence, not segment. So excuse me, but in that, we learned that, and that his family's like kind of mad at him or embarrassed at him that he's got, he claims that he sees dead people, but they're not buying it, and they just think he's an embarrassment, right? And he's got this big sister who's a little older teenager who reminds me a lot of the it's kind of twisted way, but like Jennifer Grey's character in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, kind of this very self-absorbed girl, just the way his sister is. What's your take on the sister character?
Oh, yeah, I think she's fun. She is fun. You do see,
for sure,
she's just
right?
like a ditzy character, but you do see some growth from her through the course of the movie. She's dynamic enough, I think. And
I think that they that she changes, and I think that's a difference, of course, between what happens with Jennifer Grey and Ferris Bueller, right? She kind of
right,
But
one interesting thing is that Elaine Stritch, the voice of the grandma, this is her last film role.
Yeah, I was going to say that was her last film, because when did she die? Like in 2014 or something, or even a little earlier. But she's and the voice cast is terrific. Anna Kendrick plays the sister. Jeff Garlin plays the dad.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting because I think for a while people would have had a weirdness with him as a dad, because he was on Curb Your Enthusiasm for so long, but because now he's been a dad on the Goldbergs for 3 or 4 years, and that's a show I watch every week. It's really natural, but I'm like, why is he is kind of a grump on the Goldbergs, but it's sort of jarring a little bit to see him being so mean, he's kind of similar to like your dad in, like, say, Peter Pan. That's just kind of
just kind of wants his son to follow a particular path, but is unwilling to really pay attention to what's going on around him. I kept thinking of Jeff Garlin and Wall-E.
Right,
because he plays the captain in Wall-E. You get completely different characters. I just like his voice. I just think he's got such a cool voice for animation.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting because you look at something like Chicken Little, which has a very similar dynamic as far as this father who's sort of embarrassed by their son, and how that movie is just so mean-spirited and so gloomy, to me at least. Like, that dad is so mean and so awful. I hate him, and I hate the way he makes Chicken Little feel. And here they manage that much better. Here, that I think maybe just because you just don't have that much of him, and so it's less like we feel how it hurts Norman, but we don't hate the character because we don't have tons of it. We just get just enough.
Yeah, Agreed. And he comes around, right? And that's helpful too. But I agree.
Yeah. I love the whole walk to school where you see all the different ghosts in the one in the tree, the one in
that is the coolest scene. One of my favorites in the whole film, because it really sets up both, I think, Norman as a character as well as, and then what's going on in this town. But again, I just was amazed at the animation. Just that wonderful, like, how did they do that? I mean, I know it's just a bunch of composite shots and things, but I think it looked to me like they did the stop motion animation on those characters and then did all that enhancement to make them be ghosts. Put all that kind of green mist around them and all those different effects. It's just visually really a knockout.
Yeah, I agree. It's fun, it's scary, it's sweet, and it just gives you an idea of Norman, his life, his personality, everything about it. So let's talk about Neil. So Neil becomes Norman's
Neil.
friend. And one of the things I think that's interesting about him is that he says at the drama class, which the drama class is interesting, but he says you can't stop bullying. It's part of human nature, which is a really interesting kind of when you think about the movie as a whole. It's kind of an interesting comment, especially for his character to say. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the way both Neil and Norman handle the bullying is really interesting. Neil, it does such a good job about he's smart and he sees the world for what it is and he accepts it, and then he also, but he doesn't really, like, it doesn't bug him. He's not necessarily trying to change it. He just like, this is who I am, world, and if you don't like it, I don't care. So I admire that. I mean, I'm sad that they get bullied at all, but and that it even exists. But I mean, he does have a point about that in life. I mean, sadly, it is the way it is. I think he's saying the truth, even though it's sad. But I think he's saying the truth. What's your take?
Yeah, it's really interesting because you think about later on when we'll talk about this a lot, but when the bullied becomes the bully later on in the movie, it's an interesting thing, and it's not until Norman reminds her of somebody that loved her and goodness in the world. So I think that yes, bullying is human nature, but also is goodness and love. And I think that's kind of part of the message of the movie. And so we start out with this message of bullying is inevitable, but then also we kind of end with this message of love and acceptance. So it works really well, I think.
I do too. I think Norman handles the bullying in an interesting way too, and not necessarily a bad way. I mean, because clearly he doesn't like it. He seems to be more hurt by it, and also I think just generally hurt that people don't understand him. I think maybe even confused, why people don't understand him, because it's his reality that he's seeing, these ghosts, but nobody's willing to accept it, and people just make fun of him or hurt him. Yeah. But he doesn't seem to necessarily he's not necessarily defiant against them. I think he's also accepting about it, but probably more in which is more of a melancholy way than Neil is. At least, my interpretation.
Yeah. I think that's true. I agree. And so one thing is also interesting about this movie is that there are so many characters, and that can be very problematic. But there are
exactly. They pull it off.
Characters, and that's not even including the townspeople. If you add the townspeople, there's another couple dozen, and so that's very impressive.
It is, with all the stop motion that they do. It's really really something, and everything really looks good. Even those kind of mob type scenes that are going on in Act 3.
Yeah.
It all looks really good, and maybe some of it's CGI, but I think just most of it is, they're using puppets.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting when you learn about the production of this film that they wanted to make a zombie movie because they felt that it was an easy way to kind of involve a little bit of social commentary, which is a part of the genre of monster movies, zombie movies, and they wanted to do something that could help kids kind of express how they're feeling about not being listened to and not being taken seriously. And I really remember that as a child. I remember feeling like I had answers to these questions. I had ideas. I had thought about things, especially as a teenager. And I remember one time at church, I had really worked hard on a talk and on a speech we did, and it was on Esther, and I'd really researched it, and and a lot of people, they came up to me, I'm so amazed that you gave that kind of talk and so impressed. And while you're kind of complimented, it's kind of also like, I felt a little bit like, what, did they just assume I was going to be stupid? You know what I mean? Like, there was a side of me that was like, why are they so surprised? I'm and I don't know. I think that we sometimes either assume that all teenagers are inherently rebellious or inherently stupid. And that can be very frustrating when you're that age. But I even as a little child, I remember that sensation of feeling like nobody is listening to me. Nobody cares what I have to say. And just being so like loving the people who really listened and were really my friend. I've always been a huge mentor person. And one of the things I love the most about my grandpa, who is my hero in life, is that he loved me and he was such a great listener. And I definitely can relate to Norman in the sense that like his grandma is the one that's sort of watching out for him, because I felt that way about my grandpa for sure. So
that's really, really great.
So I don't know, it's an interesting thing, but I guess for this movie it was the first time they ever used a color 3D printer to create all of the masks for the puppets, the faces, because they're like a little like mask, whatever, that they pop on to the puppet for each expression.
For each expression that the fake character makes, and I just love how they built kind of that model, particularly for Norman. His face is so expressive, and clearly because they're busting out all those 3D models of it. But his eyebrows are so cool. Too. I just think this definitely one of the strengths of it. That's really interesting to know too, that they're the technology is helping move the art forward in this case. Or hopefully making their lives a little easier.
I guess that Coraline had used black and white 3D printer, but this is the first time that it had been in color.
Color
makes sense when you think about, because Coraline is pretty black and white. and this definitely has just so much color. So it's really cool. So then he goes home. They talk about the play and the witch's curse, and I think that was a really smart way to sort of have exposition, is have it be part of this play and the practice for the play. And you find out about this witch's curse on the town, and you find out some more exposition later on. But they do a pretty good job, I think, of weaving exposition into the story.
I agree. Even with some of those shots in the opening scene, you see that this town is obsessed with witches. Something happened. It almost like made me feel like it was a very kitschy. It was like if all the stuff around aliens, like Area 51, and then Salem, Massachusetts, like met and had a baby, it would be Blythe, whatever, Blythe Hollow. Is that the name of the town? Because they've got all this kind of kitschy stuff about witches and stuff, and so it's setting up the without really talking about it. You say something went on here with the witch, and it made me think instantly like there must have been a witch trial or something, and we find out that is what happened. But I agree with you. That's again just one of the storytelling strengths of what they're doing in Laika. Yeah. They're showing and not necessarily telling and hitting you over the head with it. And that school play scene, as you're talking about, is a really good example of how of bringing up this history, but without just like hitting you over the head or boring you with your exposition.
Yeah, I agree. And so we learned, that there was this girl who was declared a witch, and then was killed, and we start to learn more kind of about her throughout the course of this. And there's been this curse put on the town, and we learn more about it as we go along. Well, Norman ends up getting into this big fight with his father. I did really love the scene where he's like walking through the hallway at school, and the way that they kind of show the bullying and the kind of I remember that sort of weird feeling in high school of just like, I don't know, walking through the hallways and feeling you were like in some kind of like tunnel of people. Yeah. Like it's such a weird time to be alive, is in high school and middle school.
Absolutely.
Goes to the bathroom, and we get this scene with Pendergast, this man named Mr. Pendergast, and we get this scene with his his uncle, and he comes through the toilet.
Yeah, he's died. And, he's kind of doing a Harry Potter,
Right, yeah. Except for Wayne not as annoying as Moaning Myrtle. So what do you think of Pendergast?
Well, he's a fun character, fun design, and he's the one who's been tasked with reading this story every year. It's just part of kind of appeasing of the big ghost over the town, and he's died, and so he's now handing it over to Norman, because he knows Norman has this. It's not ESP, but whatever you call it, this extra ability to see the ghosts, and
right.
It's over. He's played by John Goodman. It's over the top, but it's just kind of fun, It's just like the kooky character that even he's had a hard task, and you don't know what happened first, if he went crazy before or after. He was given this assignment, but still, it's colorful and it's fun, and it adds to kind of the excitement and the mystery of it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that we do see him earlier before he dies.
Yeah, before he dies.
Yeah. And he tells Norman with Neil, he tells him that, you must take up the ritual to protect the town.
Before sunset, right?
Yes. He doesn't tell him to sunset until he dies,
oh, that's
right?
later. That's when he comes.
Yeah, until he dies. Yeah. So then that's his thing that he has to do. He has to tell that he has to read the book before sundown that day, and once he's finished, then his task is completed and his spirit is set free, and he leaves. And so then that leaves Norman to figure this all out and try to find the book. And some of the humor doesn't 100% work for me. In like this scene and some of the other scenes, I don't know, it just doesn't quite nail it. But it's still a fun scene. I still like it overall. It just
he's not my favorite character, and once he was gone, I was in a way kind of relieved. Like, I hope we don't have to hear too much of this. There's that part where Norman goes into his house, and his house is really scary. It's up on the hill, and he's clearly been some kind of a hoarder and not very tidy, and who knows? I mean, the guy had issues, but Norman's trying to pry the book from his dead. He's gripped onto it. Pendergrass has gripped onto it with his dead hands, and it's a really long sequence as Norman's trying to get the book out of his hands. Please, how much do we have to see of this? But,
I do also like thinking about going to go get the book. He's grounded, but he's going to go, and he's talking to Grandma, and she says, there's nothing wrong with being scared, Norman, as long as you don't let it change who you are.
Yeah. Good. Some wisdom from our friends at Laika. That's good advice from Grandma.
Kind of reminds me of Sam Elliott's character in The Good Dinosaur. And he's like, nothing wrong with being scared. Being scared lets you know you're alive.
Yeah.
He goes to the cemetery, and he's going to try to read the book. But the problem is there's this guy named Alvin who is his bully at school.
Alvin's the big bully at school, and he is such a stupid jerk. I mean, he is the quintessential bully that we all knew and hated. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, he reminds me a lot of the bully character on The Simpsons. Not Nelson, but the one that they will joke a lot that he's like he's like 19 or something like that in elementary school. He looks a lot like that character.
He looks a lot like him.
Yeah. And so he prevents him from finishing the story, and the sun goes down, and that's when the characters, the people, the cursed dead, come up as zombies. And so what's really interesting is the next probably 45 minutes of the movie are all sort of classic chases, zombie kind of scenes.
It's total homage in a way to every horror movie, right? I mean, the kids have to kind of unite, and they're getting chased. Yeah.
Because you have you end up with Neil and Norman and Alvin. And then you have his sister ends up coming for him because she's going to get blamed if he's gone. And so, and what's her name again? I forget.
The sister's name is Courtney.
So then Courtney.
And she's voiced by Anna Kendrick.
Yes. Anna Kendrick. And then Mitch is the brother of Neil.
Who's Neil's big brother.
Yeah.
And it's like a football player or something. I mean, Courtney's got a big crush on him.
Yeah. And so this group is kind of running after they're trying to get up to the town hall, and they're being chased by the zombies. And so, like you said, there's sort of a lot of classic zombie kind of moments and scenes.
And then even like kind of Scooby-Doo, where they, I'll get it. Mitch has a van.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good comparison.
Yeah, and then they get in the van, and there's all this zany chase as they're screaming, as they're being chased in the van. And, I mean, it's fun, and it's, again, reminiscent of lots of other things, and great, and, again, knockout animation.
Yeah. I agree. And you have the townspeople that are, trying to kill the zombies, and everything's just mayhem and craziness.
It's mayhem. Yeah.
And so, and they're looking in the archives for what will break the curse, and not finding it.
Yeah, because I'm wanting to call him Kubo. I'm thinking wrong movie, Stan. It's Norman, not Kubo. Excuse me. Norman keeps reading through the book that he pried from his uncle's hands, and it's a fairy tale, and there's nothing in there that seems to be anything that people these zombies are reacting to. It's not breaking the spell. Nothing's happening. So
yeah.
So they're desperately trying to figure out what they can do.
Yeah.
What again leads them to the town hall? Is it the friend that they like Google it or something?
Yeah, there's these what is it that they're trying to find out this they're trying to find out more about this Agatha Pendergast, Aggie. Find out more about the Judge Hopkins and that whole situation, and because the grave is unmarked.
That's right.
And,
that's right. As soon as the records are in the town hall, right, or something to that effect, and that leads them there.
Something like that. Yeah, it's a little confusing.
A little confusing, a little convoluted, but then again, you just kind of throw caution to the wind. You're just like, okay, whatever, and you just go wherever they're running around.
Yeah, because he realizes that the grave is unmarked, and so he's trying to find out more. And that's when he contacts Salma from school, and he tells him about the archives, and that we'll talk about that'll have the unmarked grave. So that's what they're trying to find, I think, there. But
she's a friend. She's one of Neil's friends, right? Or not a close friend, but she hangs out with Neil a little bit. Yeah.
And so I did like the line. I think it's pretty funny. He says that Mitch says, "If I'd known there was so much reading involved, I would have brought a completely." Or no, Norman says, "If I had known there was so much reading involved, I would have brought a completely different group of people." That was funny to me.
Yeah, it had some fun. Why? Because it's true. Because here he is with really kind of, with the exception of Neil, these people are just not.
Yeah.
I mean, his sister and Mitch, and Norman, Alvin,
Yeah. And Norman says at a certain point, he says, "No one ever listens to me, and everyone in the real world thinks I'm a freak, and maybe they're right." And so he's feeling this frustration. Like I said, I think they do a really good job sort of capturing that feeling that so many children have of just like they're not listening to me. They don't care what I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good. So all right. And Cody Smith-McPhee, the voice of Norman, he makes such interesting choices. He's been in the X-Men movies and whatever, but like he was just in this movie Alpha this year, which
that's right.
Yeah, it looked terrible, But I was so pleasantly
good,
surprised.
right?
It
Yeah.
was good. It was good. It was beautifully made. It was compelling. It was. I kind of joked that it was the 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 teenage version of the Revenant, but with nice about a nice person. That's kind of how it felt.
That's awesome.
But it was good. It was quality, and I was
Yeah.
it was way better than it looked. That's for sure. But anyway, he's an interesting actor. He picks interesting work. I
interesting
feel.
projects, and
Yeah.
I really like his vocal performance in this film a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strong points is that because not only is do they do a wonderful job in animating Norman, but you know the vocal performance just enhances it so much.
Yeah,
she's very good.
Yeah, I agree. He has a lot of nuance to his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so all right, then so what happens is basically Norman finds this book and he needs to go up to the tower to read the book, and I can't really remember why he needs to do that, but he
goes up there, I think partly too because that, you know, I mean, I think it's the spirit of Aggie, but it's just that in the sky, you know, that you see those eyes in the mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost looks like a witch. You know how we would classify kind of the classical looking witch. But
so he's trying to talk to her.
And you know, kudos to Norman that he's not shying away from any of this now. He's on board and he's fighting it. You know, he's just fighting it.
Yeah, he's brave.
And, he's really brave.
Yeah. So he climbs up the tower, but the witch strikes the book with lightning, and that hurls Norman off of the tower and back into the archives. And he has this dream where he learns the whole story about Agatha or Aggie Prendergast. This girl, she was a medium, just like Norman. So she could commune with dead people and hear their stories, and this this allowed her to be wrongfully convicted by the town
as a
witch. And so she is super, super bitter, as I mean, naturally you might be inclined to be if you get killed.
Yeah, bitter and eternally angry, you know, and just wreaks havoc with her anger.
Yeah. And she just says, I'll make you all sorry. And she's very angry. And I like that. I think it's my favorite part about this movie, aside from the animation, is this message of that with this bullied person becoming the bully, that if we allow, even if we feel justified in our anger, if we allow it to take over our lives, then we become what we hate.
Yeah, and wow, and she is the embodiment of it, isn't she? Yeah.
And so I love sort of dream sequences in movies like this, you know, that I love in the final Harry Potter movie, for example, when Harry is in that sort of spirit world dream area. I love it's just such a peaceful, and even though this is like a traumatic event we're seeing, I don't know, there's just something, I just love scenes like that. I think they're really good.
It's a cool narrative device, and they do it artistically. They do it in an interesting way too. How the world almost like the real world almost burns up around Norman, and he's taken into this other realm, and
that's right. That's true.
Visually, it's really, really striking how they pull him into kind of this dream where the subconscious stuff is going on, and it's really very effective.
Yeah. And so Norman decides, he says, I've got to do something that nobody has ever done before. I've got to talk to her. So he actually talks to the zombies, And they actually tell him they're not really zombies in like the traditional sense. They're more like spirits because they're really not trying to eat anybody. And
right, they're not trying exactly. They're freaky looking, you know. I mean, they're terrifying. No wonder everybody's freaking out, you know. But yeah,
they're just trying to get Norman to intervene on their behalf and get rid of the curse, basically. And they explain what they did out of, you know, that they acted out of fear, and because
they're like basically the judge and jury,
of
who convicted Aggie to death, and they can't, they're stuck in this, you know, type of hell, right? That they can't escape from, because there's all this kind of unresolved things as things were set up, you know, in this world, as you mentioned early on.
Yeah, and you do get a really good scene where the mob is trying to stop Norman from going, and he says, they were just like you, but now it has to stop. So they acted in fear as sort of mob rule, and now here there's mob rule again. And that, I think, it was a really powerful scene.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting too that really, even though, I mean, Norman's sister and Mitch and everybody, you know, they're on his side, kind of the Scooby gang, for lack of a better phrase, are on his side, but nobody else really is on his side. But he carries on, you know, and he does what he knows he needs to do.
His parents are in the mob.
I know, exactly.
So it's pretty interesting. And I do, it's right around here too that you also get Courtney trying to sort of buoy his spirits, and she says, I cheered the uncheerable. It's funny.
Courtney's funny. Yeah, she's a funny character. Because she's still super dumb, even though she ultimately comes around and believes her brother, which I think that's really the revelation, right? Is that she's experiencing all this stuff. And she's like, holy smokes, my brother was not kidding. This stuff is real. You know, he's really.
So then,
which I was happy about, like we were talking again about at the beginning, which she, even though she still stays pretty stupid, she comes around and at least becomes his advocate, which I liked.
Yeah, I think so too. And so Judge Hopkins, one of the zombies, ends up getting in the car in the back seat with.
So funny.
And so anyway, but that's pretty fun. And he does. Norman is able to get his parents to drive him to follow Judge Hopkins and get to this grave in the forest, and that's where he confronts Aggie, and they have this fairly long discussion, and he tells her that she is turning, that her vengeance has only made her like the ones who wronged her, that he tells her that, and that he also, though, I love the fact he tells her, I'm not leaving you alone, but just listen. He tells her that he will listen, which nobody has been willing to do for him the entire movie, but except for Neil, I guess. But
Neil.
Yeah, and telling her that he is not just going to judge her, that he really wants to listen. And he says, you want everyone to suffer as much as you, but there must be someone who loved you, and you must remember the good ones. And then Aggie says, but what about the people who hurt you? Don't you ever want to make them suffer? Norman says, well, yeah, but what good would it do? You think just because there's bad people that there's no good ones. good ones either. I thought the same thing for a while, but there's always someone out there for you somewhere. And that's when she thinks of her mom, which I think is a very powerful scene.
It really is a powerful scene, because when he's having this conversation with Aggie, she goes all Linda Blair almost, I mean, she's all in this. I mean, it's really cool, art that they created for it, but she's levitated, and it's like lightning bolts are coming out of her, and she's kind of using her power, and she's still super mad. But I just think those words he says to her, they're, he's speaking the truth, and it's beautiful. Yeah,
I think so. And you just think of, like, hopefully most people can think of their mothers as somebody who, that unconditional love. It's really beautiful. And
that's where the fairy tale comes in, right?
Yeah, because she would read her the fairy tale. Yeah. And so she just falls asleep on Norman's shoulder, and she just kind of drifts away. And I love that. I think that's
I do too.
So sweet. It's a really sweet movie for all the scares and all the gross out kind of moments and stuff. There's, like I said earlier, there's a heart here that's really lovely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's really a sweet way to bring that conflict, to resolve the conflict, because it's not like he has to destroy her or blow her up or something. He's just gotta talk with her and calm her down and help and listen to her and help her remember.
And help her realize, like, who she had become. I think you just get so caught up sometimes in your anger or your emotion that you don't even realize what you're becoming. So that was really, really beautiful. So they also have the moment after everything's sort of resolved. There's a little bit of calm. We have a moment where we find out that Mitch is a gay character, and he jokes about his boyfriend. And this
Courtney's bombed because she no chance with Mitch.
And director Chris Butler, he said that that the character was explicitly connected with the film's message. He says, quote, "If we're saying to anyone that watches this movie, don't judge other people, then we've got to have the strength of our convictions." So this was the first gay character in a animated film, openly a gay character. So it was really quite groundbreaking in that fact.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't shy away from it, that's for sure. And in that resolution too, as all this stuff is coming to a conclusion. Rachel, when the zombies, I can't remember if it's before Mitch, we find out about Mitch or not. I think it's before, but the zombies basically turn back into like a spirit, and then are able to drift off. And that animation is so cool, because they go from truly being like the grotesque zombie to then looking like they looked like is when they were humans, and then their spirit kind of evaporates into that cool ParaNorman green mist. Want to call it.
And you sense the sort of relief of the you sense this sort of relief on the part of the zombies that this horrible curse is over.
It's relief, and the expression on their faces is interesting too, because they're not looking elated, because I think they realize what they did was horrible. What they did to Aggie was unconscionable, really, right?
Yeah.
And they know it, but they're at least freed from this particular moment, and then they have to deal with it. And again, I was so impressed with the expression that they animated on their faces.
Yeah, I
could convey
agree.
that.
Yeah, me too. And finally, you have Norman and Neil, and they're just, sitting talking, and he says to Neil, "You stood by me all the time." So they have a really cute kind of moment at the end, and and then we get our credits, which I love the closing credits, which are kind of have that feel, sort of old school horror posters.
Horror, like movie posters. Yeah.
Which are really fun. So, yeah, I really like this movie. I think that it has some good scares. It's pretty funny. I mean, I remember the first time I saw it, even though I was an adult, I genuinely thought it was pretty scary. It had a couple times where in the theater, like, ooh,
yeah, it's scary. There's some good scares in it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And the animation is great. I think it has a great message about letting other people choose who you become, whether it's a bully, whether it's the way that Aggie kind of became this horrible person and became the bully after being bullied, and what Norman is not going to allow that to happen to him, and I don't know, just all the different characters are really funny and sweet, and I just really enjoy it. I think it's a really fun movie and got a ton of heart. So I think they did a really good job. Great voice cast, great looking film. So yeah, I love it. I think it's great.
I do too. It's really just, for all the reasons you said, it's just really just a well done, terrific film, and a perfect film for Halloween.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually watched it several times for Halloween, and it's only 93 minutes, which is kind of nice for Halloween.
Yeah.
Not too
it's
long.
A good length, and there's it's action packed. There's never a dull moment really in this film. And there's a couple of things like the getting the book out of his dead uncle's hands, stuff like that, and I don't really like it. You can fast forward through.
Yeah.
but overall it moves at a pretty good clip, and really entertaining and spooky. And legitimately kind of spooky.
And I do like that it doesn't. I do like the fact that the grandma is still at the end. Like
me too. Because I was wondering what was going to happen to her. Then we find out she's there, and not only is she there, but Norman's dad and sister, although they can't see her, they ask him, "Is Grandma here?" And they acknowledge it, and they come in and watch TV with him. And with her, with Grandma too. Grandma's in the room doing her ghost knitting.
Yeah, because her job. Yeah, that's right, ghost knitting. Because her job isn't finished yet. Like Norman is not a finished character. He's still got a lot more growth and learning.
She's there to help Norman. It's a real comfort. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's great.
I love that concept too, Rachel. That I think there's a bit of truth to it. I mean, partly from our faith, but I just also think it's such a wonderful concept that you're talking about the relationship you had with your grandpa, and then just these other our loved ones that that have died and are no longer with us, but that they are in a way, that they're looking out for us and helping us, even though we can't really see it. I just love that idea.
Me too. And I believe it. I really do. And so, it's a great movie. If you guys listening, if you haven't seen it, definitely give ParaNorman a shot.
Check it out.
Yeah, they did a great job. And check out all the Laika films. I definitely think they're all worth a watch, at least, for sure.
Laika is such an interesting studio. Absolutely. Yeah. You should watch all the Laika films. Yeah.
So.
And hopefully this new one's going to be good.
Yes, very excited. Very excited about it. So, all right, great. Well, thanks so much for talking about ParaNorman with me. And let us know in the comment section or on Twitter what you think about ParaNorman. And we'll discuss it. It'll be fun. And so, Sanford, where can people find you?
Well, speaking of Twitter, I'm my handle is @StanfordClark, and I have a movie blog, which is moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews on iTunes and on YouTube, so make sure to check that out. And give us a thumbs up on YouTube and give us your reviews on iTunes. We really appreciate it when you do. And in next month, we are going to be talking about, for Obscure Animation, we're going to be talking about In My Corner of the World, which is an anime film that I'm really excited to dive into. So thanks again. And let us know what you think about ParaNorman. So we'll talk to you all later.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.